Hi everybody, it's Tina with Mastercraft Dolls. Long time no see. So I wanted to do a little video today about skin tones. And we're talking about reborns and silicones, but in this particular video, we're going to talk reborns, okay? And the different paints that you would use for different skin tones. So as an example, I'm in the middle of rooting two different heads. One is a light complected Caucasian baby. And so never mind her hair because it's in progress, but I wanted to use the head as a reference. So this is the Maddie kit by Bonnie Brown, and she is a Caucasian baby. So we're going to talk about the different color paints that we use to get to achieve this final look. And we're going to talk about African American skin tones. And that would be this one. So this is how he doesn't have his eyebrows yet. This is going to be a boy. Believe it or not, this doll is only going to be in 6 to 9 month clothing, but this one is going to be in 2T. But he's a longer kit. This is the Lotta kit. So we're going to talk about the different paints we use to get to these skin tones. So we're going to go ahead and start with Maddie. And these babies their painting is complete. They're just waiting for hair, and she's just waiting for hair. He's waiting for hair and eyelashes. So we're going to talk about Maddie, and I'm talking about Genesis Heat Set paints, okay? And you could probably get the equivalent in the air dry paints, but I wanted to talk about Genesis in particular. So the first thing you want to do is when you get your kit, you're going to wash it up and everything, and you're going to give it a first coat of just the primary color, which would be Flesh 08. I use Flesh 08. It's a very, very light skin tone, and it's by Genesis Heat Set Paints. So you would mix up your paint with some thinning medium, and let me show you what thinning medium I use. Just one moment. I would recommend odorless thinning medium. Paint thinner. And you can use like Bob Ross from Hobby Lobby. I use Mona Lisa. So if you want to do a screenshot. And the nice thing about it is it doesn't have a smell. So what I do is I put it into a squirt bottle. And you can get these squirt bottles on Amazon. I'm going to be getting an affiliate program with Amazon, so I can put links in the videos below, and if you order using my code, you get a discount. Plus I get a little bit of a incentive as well. But I get these little squirt bottles with the lid on it. It's important that it's got a little lid on it because this stuff evaporates. So I just put it in a little squirt bottle and I call it Mona, or whatever you want to call yours. And that helps to regulate how much you put in a dish when you mix your paints. So you're going to go ahead and get I get these little dishes. They're Corningware. I think it's like Corel is the one that makes these. They're little white dishes. And I like the size because when you're not using the paint, you can just slip them right into a sandwich bag. But the consistency you want is going to be like a very runny consistency. So you're going to want to pour I don't measure anything, but you want to just pour some to cover the surface of the bottom of the plate. And then you're going to want to use, I get these brushes, and they're basically called mop brushes. And I'm going to go ahead and put links for all of this stuff and where I buy them in the description below. And it's a 1/2 inch and it's considered a lunar mop brush. And the reason you want to use a mop brush is because it holds a lot of paint. And when you're painting, you can just dip it in your paints, and then you can paint whatever you want, and then you get a little cosmetic wedge. Mine have been used a lot, so they're actually in the color that I use. But you take a little cosmetic wedge and you take the tweezers and you tweeze off the whole edge. And then that's what you do is you paint the head, and then you dab it to make sure there's no runs or any puddles. But anyway, my first layer is always the flesh tone, the main flesh tone you're going to use, which would be, in this case, it would be Flesh 08. Or you can use, if you have the color, it's called Baby Skin, and I think Bountiful Baby makes that. And it's just a little bit, if you look, the one on the top is Baby Skin, and the one on the bottom is Flesh 08. So the one on top, the Baby Skin, just has a little bit more pink added to it. So you can use either one, or whatever skin tone you're doing. For this particular Caucasian skin tone, there's different ways you can paint a baby. You can use different colors, like different skin tones, like I just mentioned, the Flesh 08, and then just keep building it back up. I put the flesh tone, I put like 3 layers of flesh tone on it. You could put up to 3 layers on a baby before you bake it. So you got to let the first layer dry, and then you can do a second layer, then a third layer before you put it in the oven. Okay, then you put it in the oven for 8 minutes, whether it be a New Wave oven or a big oven. All right, and then you put it, the New Wave, I usually put on there at 265. And on a regular oven, I use the convection setting, and I put it on 300. Let me just find out why my iPad's not charging. Oh well. I got it plugged in, so hopefully it is recognizing it. So anyway, so you would do the first 3 layers of the flesh tone. And then after it bakes, you take it out. And then what I do is I start with the mottling. And with the mottling, you can use whatever blush tone you want. I find the best blush tone to use for any skin baby, I use Quinacridone Crimson. And it's kind of a magenta. Hold on just a second here. It's kind of a magenta color. It's dark, but you don't want to see. It's kind of a dark magenta color. You want to mix that up with your Mona Lisa, and then you want to get a little mottling sponge. You take a cosmetic wedge, and then you get the tweezers, and you just tweeze some holes in it. You go all the way around, and then you tweeze some holes in it. Okay, and this is going to give a mottled effect on the skin. So you just dab it on the skin, and it's supposed to give, I do a layer of red, like this magenta color, and then I use vein blue. So it's going to represent like all of your stuff underneath, like your blood vessels and your veins underneath. This is vein blue. And this is kind of like a phthalo blue. It's kind of a bluish green mix. Or you can use phthalo blue, whatever color you want. That's pretty close. It's like a turquoise color. So then you, after the red mottling dries, then you go over it with the blue mottling. All right. And then before you put it in the oven, just go around and make sure there's no pronounced edges. What's nice about Genesis is you can just like wipe the different, you can blend it with the sponge if it looks too pronounced. Then you go ahead and put it in the oven, bake it. And then after that, I like to do the veining. Now, not all people feel comfortable with veining. I think the more details you put on a baby, the more realistic it's going to be. Most everybody likes veining, but they don't like real heavy veining. So what I do, I mean, you can use Genesis Heat Set paints, and you can use the Phthalo Blue and just make a thicker consistency and use a liner brush like this, and draw some veins on. They kind of look like tree branches wherever you want them. But I like using a colored pencil, and I use the it's called Caran d'Ache. It's Swiss made, and it's like a baby blue color. And where I put my veins on the baby is I'll usually put one down the forehead, like right here, very, very faint. And then I'll put them in the wrist area, and you just look at your own body and see where they're at. I think there's a lot of blue right in here, right in the thickness of the thumb in here. And then I put a couple going down like this. Okay, and then sometimes I'll put on their hand, on the upper hand, see how I have all these veins? Sometimes I'll put one going up from the finger, up the arm. And then I'll put a couple on the temple area over here. And then also, I'll maybe put one down the middle of the knee, and then the inside of the ankles. So that's how I do my veining. And like her, she's got such, you can barely even, you don't want it to be real noticeable. You don't want it to be like, that's the first thing they look at when they see the baby. You just want it very faint. But, you know, collectors, when they get their babies, that's what they look for. They look for details. So to make you stand out from other reborn artists, you need to learn how to make those details. And that's why you need to be coming back here for your videos. So once you get the modeling done and when you get the veining done, if you're going to be using a pencil for your veining, you need to go over it with a flesh color. You know, just go over it, because that's going to seal it when you put it in the oven. That's what seals these pencils. But if you use the Genesis Heat Set paints for the veins, you don't need to do that. You just put the veins on and you're done. You can bake it like that. Once you get the veins done, then you're going to want to do some different washes on the baby. Now, I didn't talk about the different kits you could get. The different kits you can get, they come in different shades of flesh, you know, when they're unpainted. But typically you want to do a very light wash color, which means that it's very thin, doesn't have much paint in it. You want to do a wash of red. You want to do a wash of blue. And then once you get that done, then you're going to want to you're going to mix up some quinacridone crimson. Okay, you're going to bake that. You're going to bake those washes. You're going to want to do one red, and you're going to want to do one blue. And the best ones to use for that are transparent, which is important, is Genesis Red. But you want to really dilute it down. Or you can use quinacridone crimson, either one. That's what you're going to be using for the wash for the red. And then aquamarine blue would be a good one because it's transparent. Very washed down. You got to be very careful with these colors to make sure it doesn't stain darker than what you want. So it's kind of a science. I would recommend maybe practicing on some practice limbs that you can get from Bountiful Baby before you're comfortable with it. Once you get that baked, then you're ready for your detailing, for your blushing. So another thing I want to mention is I use powders, like for details. Like if you look at across the bridge of babies, they've got that blue tint that goes across here, and I use powders for that. I'll use a powder. I use this light blue powder to go across the nose, and sometimes down here, and then maybe under the nose area. And then sometimes in the palms, for babies, in the palms of the hands, it's kind of blue, and on the inside of the feet. So you can use powders for that. If you don't want to use powders, you can use paint. Either way. I just use pencils and powders sometimes to get through the, make it go faster. I also use powders on the lips. And And the color that I use on lips is, and you can decide on your own colors. If you want to go peachy, if you want to go with the peachy, more peachy baby, then you would go lighter. But I usually use this one for the lips. And I use this with a brush, with a paintbrush, a dry paintbrush. Brush them on. And then I also go in the creases of the ears. I use this color for creases as well, for the whole body. That's another thing you need to do is creases. I use a very small brush and just use powders. And then the way you seal it is you go over it with the flesh tone, the whole body. The nostrils. With the nostrils, I go with the darker color because look, if you look at my nose, it almost looks black in there. But I go with the darker, you don't want to go with black. I would go with this color right here. And then yellow. Sometimes baby's nose are a little bit yellow. Sometimes I put yellow on the nose. And then for the ears, for the inside of the ears, I use, it's called Eyelid Purple for Genesis Heat Set Paints. It's this color right here. It's called Eyelid Purple. It looks kind of dark, but it's not that dark when you water it down. Now, another thing that I would recommend doing on your Genesis Heat Set paints, take a Sharpie and write the name of the color on the top of the lid because they're kind of oily and your label on the sides will fall off sometimes. So I'd highly recommend that. All right, so then you're ready for your blush and, to do your cheeks. To do the cheeks, the nose, the chin, the forehead. That's where I put the blush on. And the back of the neck. And the knees, the tops of the hands, the fingertips. Wherever you see blush. Like up here on the top digits. And then the hand right here. The elbows. I put a little blush on the shoulders. And then sometimes in the fat rolls right here and the inside of the legs, the knees, just all the sweet spots. The way I do it is I mix thinning medium, Genesis thinning medium, which is like a gel-like thing. And I don't know what they've got with the new heat set paints. But this is thinning medium, and all it is just looks like white gel. Whoops, I just poured some out. It's got a mixture of oil and gel in there. So mix that up and then put some quinacridone crimson in there. And then you use a sponge, and then you just blot it on wherever you want it. Now, thinning medium takes a little bit longer to dry before you can put it in the oven, just to make a note of that. Once you get that done, then you are ready to tone everything down. You want to tone everything down with all the redness and the blueness and all of that. And you want to use this thing called warm blush. You want to put that over the whole body. And it's almost like a burnt sienna type of color. If you don't have warm blush, you can use burnt sienna. I think I have it over here, a burnt sienna. Let's see. Yeah, this is burnt sienna, and it's almost the same color. So you're gonna do a real thin wash of that. You're gonna put your Mona Lisa in, and then put your warm blush in there, and you're gonna do the whole body. This is gonna tone down all the reds and the blues and make it look more natural. It's gonna warm it up. Then you're gonna go ahead and put that in the oven. And then when you bring that out, you're going to look it over one more time to see if you need to touch up any spots, to more blush or whatever. With each layer that you do on your baby, you're going to keep wanting to build up the lip color with either the powders or the powders or the paints. So keep doing that with each layer. And then, check all your details and everything. See if that's what you want to do. If that's all you want to do, then your final layer is going to be your skin tone. Okay, so you're going to want to do 3 layers of skin tone. Bake it. And then, depending on your personal preference, then you can put some varnish on there with heat set paints, you're not required to use varnish because all the paints bake into the baby. So I don't use varnishes. I have a bad opinion about varnishes because if you got a collector that likes to hold their babies a lot and likes to rub on them and kiss them, and that's going to get your body oils onto the baby. And the varnish, like, I don't know, it does something really weird to the varnish. It doesn't mess with the paints at all, but with the varnish, it turns the varnish yellow because it picks up all of your body oils. Whereas the paints, if you don't varnish it, it doesn't do that. That's in my personal experience. So anyway, that is how you paint that's what you use for a Caucasian light complected baby. Now, as far as the eyebrows go, I use air dry paints for the eyebrows, but you can use Genesis Heat Set paints. The key to getting a realistic eyebrow is using a very, very, very thin brush, okay? And which means that you need it about this thinness. You need only about maybe 10 hairs on the brush. If you got a thicker brush, then you can cut them off with some little tiny scissors like this. And you only want like 10 hairs on there, okay? And with Genesis Heat Set paints, they actually have, you can use whatever color you want. They've got blonde brows, they've got brown brows, or you can just make up your own color. You want it fairly thick, but I use air dry paints for my eyebrows and for the nail tips. Now, Genesis does have a white thing. It's called nail tips, and that's what you use on the nail tips. But I prefer to use the air dries because I don't want to bake the baby anymore after I painted it all. So with air dries, you don't have to stick it back in the oven. So I prefer to do air dry paints. I use the Ultimate Fusion. Let me show you what those look like. A good thing to do for organization is get yourself a little bin like this, and then I put a little sticky on there saying, you know, whatever it is, air dry paints. And so you've got different browns that you want to use for eyebrows. You've got different blondes. And you've got whites, you know, for the nail tips. I don't use pure white for nail tips. I mix like the lightest flesh tone and white together because you don't want stark white. It's going to make it look fake. So you need to add a little bit of warm color to it. And then with air dry paints, you always want to use a sealer. You always want to use a sealer and some matte varnish with it so it sticks to the baby. And Ultimate Fusion has all of that. It's called Ultimate Fusion. These can be found on Irresistible's website or McPherson's or Dolls by Sandy, any place that sells baby stuff, baby kits and stuff. So that's what I use. And then you just want to, you know, practice with your eyebrows because it took me a long time to get how to figure out eyebrows. They also have little templates that you can buy for eyebrows. You can stick it over there, and then you can use powder to kind of rough it in, and then you can use your template to start doing the little hairs. Took me a long time, and I had an insecurity on eyebrows for a long time. And because I always thought I got them too dark. And that's another thing, you know, depending on what type of baby you have. If you have a newborn, they hardly have any eyebrows at all, but you still want to put some on there. I've seen how some of these babies, some of these reborn artists don't even do the eyebrows. And I think that looks ridiculous. So you got to have at least a few hairs on there for baby eyebrows. And then, of course, for toddlers, you know, like this one, you're going to want to make them look more prominent. So, you know, there is a method to do it. You want to start at the corner of the eye, straight up, and then at an angle at the outside of the colored part, that's where the arch should start. And then angling your eye out, that's where the eyebrow should stop. So I would recommend maybe using a template to begin with, and then you'll get more comfortable the more that you do. And that's what happened to me. So that's how you paint a Caucasian light colored baby. All right, now with a African American or even biracial, I always start out with to get the paints to go on and stick better, because you got to do more dark layers for a darker tone baby. I always do the first layer of just plain thinning medium. Thinning medium will give a little tooth to the vinyl, to where all the next layers they'll go on a lot easier. So just take some thinning medium, mix it up, and then just brush it on your baby and use a cosmetic wedge to pounce it off. It takes a lot longer to dry before you can put it in the oven. So then you're gonna go ahead and once that dries, you're gonna bring it out. And the base color I use for African Americans is called Flesh 02. Flesh 02, and it's a nice chocolatey color. Almost looks like a medium chocolate. And this is going to take a lot of layers, So I use this color. I do a pyro red color, a wash. And I use it depends on how. Now there's different skin tones for African American. There is a lighter skin tone that almost looks like biracial. There's a milk chocolate, and then there's a dark chocolate. If you go dark chocolate, that's much darker than this. You're going to want to mix some Mars Black in with your browns. Okay, not very much, but just a little bit. And then you're going to also use. You're still going to use Phthalo Blue for the pouncing of the. Now, African Americans don't have that much mottling. I tend to just go with the red mottling, because if you go with the blue mottling, it's going to look like bruises because of the darker skin tone. So I use the quinacridone crimson for the mottling, just like I do with the, Caucasian. And then you're going to want to do a wash of ultramarine blue. And you're going to keep going. You're going to want to do a layer of yellow, because they have yellow, and it's ochre yellow. It's more like a mustard yellow. You're going to want to do a wash of that. And then you're going to want to do everything the same way you did the steps with the Caucasian baby. You're going to want to build up those layers. And for the lip color, I use actually a pencil. I use different colors. I use like a plum color. A plum color. You want to go lighter in the middle and darker around the edge. Okay, so you can use pencils for that, or if you want to use your powders or your paints. I think with the paints, if you use a paint, you're going to want to go with eyelid purple and build that up. Okay, now the thing with when you're doing the darker skin babies, you want to do the first layer of Flesh 02 over the entire body. But when you start building up the layers with that color later on, you're going to want to skip the inside of the hands, and the underneath the bottom of the feet. And just because it's a lighter skin tone for African Americans. And so you're going to just keep building it and building it and building it with reds, blues, purples, and skin tones, or the darker browns of the skin tones, until you get the desired skin tone that you want. And if you're doing a custom order, you have to stay in contact with your customer, because she might not want it to be real dark. Okay, some people want it real dark. I've only done several dark chocolate babies, but most everybody wants them like a mid color, a mid to light. And so that's what you're going to want to do. And the purple, you're going to want to go with the purples inside the ears here and the blush. African Americans don't really have that much blush. This is a boy. I've got it just barely blushed his cheeks. They don't really have a lot of blushing. And I went with a black, I think, a soft black for the eyebrows on this one. There's lots of tutorials. I'm self-taught, and I learned on YouTube and Facebook. And I purchased a few tutorial books on, skin tones and things like that. So I did my research, and, I started out, when I first started out selling babies, my first baby was Summer Rain by Bountiful Baby, and I sold it on eBay. And then I started building my confidence and started doing more. Then I went to the higher end babies, the limited editions, and, you know, and then I realized, with my little New Wave oven, I couldn't do toddlers in that, so I had to take it to my big oven. Some husbands will fight you on that. My husband was pretty supportive, so I got lucky. But it's always good to do it on the convection setting if you have that on your oven. If you don't, you have to put it at 300 for 8 minutes. So I hope that I answered everything. There'll probably be a part 2. I just wanted to go over skin tones and some of the paints you can use. So I hope this was helpful, and we will see you on the next video. Please leave your comments below on what you think of the video, and maybe some other suggestions on what you would like to see. All right? Thanks for watching. We will see you next time. Love you guys. Bye.